This week on Outdoor Oklahoma, we'll enjoy some of our beautiful fall colors and storybook Ozark Streams. As we catch a few smallmouth, we'll visit with a diverse collection of folks who have all made it their mission to keep our rivers scenic and healthy. From the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, Outdoor Oklahoma.
I've just been raised here, grown up here. I'm sorry, he said swim here. I mean, I've been here since I was born. We've got black bear. People don't see them much. They're pretty stealthy. We have a lot of eagles in the wintertime. We'll have 200 or 300 eagles in this area. There's just world's bobcat. Just everything Oklahoma has to offer. It is private land, and I grew up not even understanding that because you could go everywhere. People didn't put fences up, and you'd hear somebody say, that's my property, and we're the world's worst at that anymore. People come here, and they want to swim because it's a nice piece of property, but we get tired of cleaning up the beer cans and the dirty diapers, and so yeah, we run people off. And it's a shame because it should be here for everybody to enjoy.
You want to go ahead and hop in, I'll push you off.
Oh, thanks. Almost cut your hook already. Oh, can I have my coffee? I was hiding my coffee from you. You know, in case you want to go down. My boots are waterproof too, so.
You know, I grew up in Holdenville, and I kind of sought this kind of stuff out. And I didn't know these Ozark Streams were here until I got out of college.
Really?
Yeah,
Huh.
I think that they're pretty much unknown
To a lot of
average
people in
Oklahoma.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a shame. You know, I grew up at pretty much the Ozark border region in Missouri, so I spent, a lot of time as a kid fishing on the Niagara, little Niagara rivers. How do you protect Ozark streams? This is one of the nicer streams that we have, but the notion of protections, like, can people see past tomorrow?
Right.
Do they realize that the things we do today affect streams 40 to 80 years from now and not, next week?
There's a largemouth just off to our right there, a couple of them. And a smallmouth. They're pretty small.
There's a couple smallmouth, yeah. And they seem not at all interested. Oh, here comes a big boy.
Oh, good deal.
It's a largemouth or spotted bass, but better than no fish though, right? It's not a smallmouth, but it's a good-looking largemouth bass. It was underneath the wood cover, came out. You can sight fish in these streams because they're so clear. You just have to be careful being far enough away that the fish doesn't see you. You know, we like to use lures like this that are natural colors. This is supposed to be a crawdad mimic. So you go ahead and gently release them back into the water.
Shannon, how old would you expect a fish that size to be in one of these streams?
Probably 8 years old.
Is that
7
right?
to 8 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, they. I actually just reviewed a bunch of data on smallmouth bass. Now largemouth are a little different, but for smallmouth, to get to an 18-inch fish is at least a 10-year-old fish.
It's been an incredible place to raise a family and enjoy the the ambiance of this part of the country. And it's just disheartening when you see what we do to our places like this in terms of the trash people leave.
It's natural for the stream to change, and sometimes the swimming hole will, along the creek, there'll be a deep pool for maybe 3 or 4 years one place, and then we have a big flood and it'll change, and it's exciting to see the natural changes that occur. And some years we have a lot of crawdads. We always seem to have the snails, but to see different species and to watch children just discover little species in the stream in the summer, it's always been exciting for me.
Anything we can do to preserve what we have is a step in the right direction. And it's not I don't think we're asking a big thing. You know, to when you go to the creek, take your trash with you when you leave. That's not a big deal, I don't think. And none of my friends think it is.
You know, sometimes people ask me, because these fish don't get as big in streams as they do in lakes and they grow slower, does that mean that they're not healthy?
Not at all. Actually, well, one of the very positive things about streams, well, there's several actually. You know, there's been very few studies done, but one that has been done shows that reservoir smallmouth bass depend largely on streams for reproduction. So, you know, the streams contribute to the fish that you see in the reservoirs, but also, genetically speaking, especially in Oklahoma, these fish are a genetically distinct segment of the population, which, you know, means that they're unique compared to other smallmouth and other portions. But, you know, they might not grow as large, but there's a lot of them and they're awful fun to catch.
So what I'm hearing is that even if I don't fish the streams, these streams still contribute to the reservoir fisheries. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Yeah, so, you know, I've heard people say before, well, you know, I reservoir fish, why do I care about streams? And that's one of several reasons why, even if you're a reservoir fisherman, you should care about streams, because you don't know where that fish actually came from, and very largely, you know, for smallmouth especially, the contribution from streams can be fairly substantial.
You know, we're using the term lake strain and river strain. What does that really mean?
Well, you know, it used to be an easier thing to say, but, you know, they impound these streams, and I would say in the immediate response to the impoundment, the actual populations would have been the same fish. Unfortunately, you know, and Oklahoma is not unique in this respect, but, you know, in the 70s in particular, we decided it was a good idea to stock fish in reservoirs. So the population genetics in a lot of the reservoirs are different than the streams now. But the, you know, they do have different population dynamics, even if they are the same genetic type of fish, just because of the world in which they live in.
So these fish are unique, at least genetically, is that right?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Which is why, you know, the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation at some point quit stocking fish in adjacent reservoirs because they realized these were distinct populations and didn't want to, you know, mess up the gene pool.
The most fondest memories I have about my childhood was a day spent out on Barren Fork and on the Illinois River. You know, they're missing a whole lot if you don't actually be able to get out and then partake or enjoy the beauty of just some solitude sometimes. It's good for you. I think that we really, Barren Fork and the Illinois as well, these are all very important streams. There's getting to be, we see more and more pollution everywhere. You know, we talk about global warming and so many things, but these streams, you know, you can do without oil, but it's very difficult to do without drinking water. You know, so I think it's very important that we do everything we can to maintain the integrity of these streams, stream bank stabilization, vegetation planting, whatever it takes along these streams to maintain don't just let it wander and go disappear underneath a gravel bed, you know. But it'll benefit our future generations, basically for clean water, for one thing. You know, if we don't have clean water, we've got a problem.
The Ozark physiographic region is defined by a variety of features, but primarily the Ozark Plateau, which includes portions of Missouri, Arkansas, and then of course this section of Oklahoma, is defined by karst topography, which means that they're cave-driven systems. They have a lot of spring-fed properties to them, a lot of limestone geology, which influences the productivity within the stream systems, but also it's at the edge of, during glaciation before our time, came down and it pushed a lot of fish down, and so these regions that we call the Ozarks are the most speciose relative to the things around them, which makes them obviously very important to us. I actually, interestingly enough, I'm from Missouri originally, and I actually did my entire PhD on Ozark Streams, looking at how smallmouth bass in particular are distributed through time and space, and how natural occurring factors like geology and soils, and in combination with different land use attributes like forested watersheds versus pasture versus urban areas, interact to influence their distribution and abundance. So that probably started my love for research within the Ozarks, but now that I'm back in Oklahoma, the eastern part of the state, we have several projects that focus on one, in fact, in particular, that's new for us that we're working on in conjunction with the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, is addressing smallmouth bass recruitment in these streams and how that relates to flow dynamics in time and space. But then we're also working on several projects looking at fish movements, in particular small stream fish, and how they respond to changes in flow regimes. The Barren Fork is pretty typical of Ozark streams. Now I think in Oklahoma it's one of our nicer Ozark streams, primarily because it is offered some sort of protection via the scenic rivers. But, you know, compared to Spavinaw Creek, and there's several others that are really beautiful Ozark streams that aren't scenic, you know, this is fairly typical. But there are places that the public can access these streams, which is also nice. A lot of the landowners that you meet around Ozark streams seem very in tune to them because they're in their backyard. But when you're on the other side of the state, you hear a lot of people say things like, oh, our streams, they just look like ditches. And you're like, well, actually, you have some of the most beautiful streams in the Midwest, so I don't think they are aware of the gems that they have in the eastern part of the state.
I moved here in order to raise children. I was a career woman, and I didn't like the idea of raising my children in a tight little neighborhood, worried about them being out. I wanted them to be able to roam and run free and climb trees. And an interesting thing, my son just graduated from college this past spring, and he came straight back to the ranch. He's taking a break before he starts his career, but he came straight back to the ranch. My children love this land. They love the memories of growing up here. The thing about being in the out of doors for young people is that it offers as much challenge as you are tough enough or dedicated enough to take on.
For protection of these streams, you have to realize that the things that we do today will impact our great-grandchildren and what they perceive to be the function of these streams, because it'll be so different. Wow, it's really nice out today.
Yeah, this is a really nice spot.
Ready? Okay. For smallmouth, there's several things you'd want to look for, but you know, do you want to catch big fish or do you want to catch a lot of fish? And it depends on what kind of a day you're having, to be fair. But you know, sometimes I can come out and I can catch a lot of really small fish, and oftentimes they'll occupy the area between runs and pools. Right at that interface, they sit and feed. But if you want a big fish, use a big lure and look for a deep hole, because they're going to be in the deeper pools and they're going to be near cover. And there's been a lot of studies done to show like what kind of cover, and it varies seasonally. A lot of times in the winter they've shown that large boulders are important to smallmouth bass. Whereas in the summer months, they say that it tends to be woody debris that's more important. But regardless, there's always a cover component and there's always a deep water component. Yeah, there's a big smallmouth right there, who just blew me off. Ooh, but you didn't get away. I wanted to catch it. It's his mother, but... Did you get him?
Yep, little smallmouth.
Yeah.
We have many miles of stream in the Northeast, Ozark Streams, but we don't have what I would call an abundance of access points. Most of the streams are located on private land. However, the Illinois River has many public access points scattered up and down, upstream from the bridge all the way to the state line. Illinois River has really great scenery. It has great fishing. That's probably the easiest place for the public to access. Another thing that I'll point out is we have a lot of landowners in northeast Oklahoma on these streams that are sympathetic to fishermen, to outdoorsmen. They really take a lot of pride in these streams. They think there's something special, and many of them recognize that this resource belongs to everybody. They feel like they have an obligation even sometimes to share it with others. So I know a lot of landowners who will allow people to fish or swim in the stream if they just ask. Most of the landowners I know aren't against people using the stream, they're against people abusing the stream. So don't be afraid to knock on someone's door and ask for permission.
When you're on our state waters, boat smart from the start, wear a life jacket. Everywhere that someone goes in our state every day, the challenge is pick up 2 pieces of trash somewhere you historically don't go. Your church, your school, your work, the shopping mall, whatever. Pick up 2 pieces of trash and throw it away properly, dispose of it. That is the #1 concern I hear from landowners. Why they don't let people on their land is because of the issues that accompany the folks coming onto their property. That 5% run it for the rest of us.
Oh, who looks ridiculous now?
Nice fish.
Thank you. So I get the last fish. That's like the perfect end of the perfect day.
Looks like it. That's a good one to quit on.
Oh yeah, it is. It's a good looking fish. But yeah, you're right. As long as you're not skunked, it's probably a good day. Even if you are, it's probably still a good day if you were fishing. I hope a lot of people get the opportunity to take advantage of these streams.
I agree.
I think one of the most important things we can do, certainly for the next generation of people, and I have a 3-year-old, so I can say this by experience, is even if you don't fish or know anything about the streams is bringing your kids so they can experience these for themselves, because just over my lifetime the streams have changed substantially, and I imagine in my child's lifetime they will as well. So getting kids involved and coming and bringing them to the stream and taking them for a float trip so they understand what these streams are about now may help protect them for the future.